Hello, everybody. This lecture is going to be on electromagnetic radiation. So light is considered radiant energy or a form of radiation. Radiation can travel through space as the only form of transferring heat and energy through a vacuum. So we don't need that physical link. The speed of light in a vacuum is extremely high. No object can travel faster than this, actually, according to Einstein, because the faster you go, the more mass you gain. The speed of the light in the vacuum, which is designated by the letter C, is 299,792.5 kilometers per second, or 186,282.4 miles per second. Try to take a second and wrap your brain around that. 186,000 miles every single second. That's incredible. In transparent materials like water, glass, plastic, etc., light is actually a little bit slower than the given value that we just mentioned. Really, like traveling through anything with a different density is going to change its speed. Also, the different colors of light passing through a transparent material is going to travel at a slightly different speed. When comparing, let's say, blue light between red light, they're going to travel at different speeds. For example, blue light's going to travel more slowly than red light. Observation and experimentation over the past 3 centuries have led to 2 different models of what light is and how it works. So that model is called an electromagnetic wave. We call it an electromagnetic wave because there's an electrical component and a magnetic component to it. So an electrically charged particle, such as an electron, possesses an electrical energy. When a charged particle undergoes acceleration, it produces magnetic energy. Electricity and magnetism are 2 sides of the same coin, essentially. An electromagnetic uses an electric current to generate a small magnetic field. An electric generating plant uses a spinning magnet to generate an electrical current. We call this basically a turbine. So you're going to typically get a turbine in most forms of generating electricity, like wind turbines, like the windmills. If we use water in a dam, that would be used to turn a turbine. If we use wave energy, that's going to be used to turn a turbine. So essentially, it's moving a magnet through a copper tube, and that's going to move electrons from point A to point B, and that's all electricity is moving electrons. A small disturbance due to acceleration in the electric field surrounding a charged particle creates a magnetic disturbance in the surrounding space. So in turn, the magnetic disturbance creates a new electrical disturbance in the space adjacent to it, and so on and so forth as a chain reaction. The result is an electrical wave and a magnetic wave at right angles to each other. So this red represents a magnetic piece to it. Note it's sort of, we'll say, flat, going horizontal, like it's a snake traveling across a table. And then the up and down piece would be our electrical portion of the wave. And then the nodes are where they intersect. So if ever you get polarizing glasses or polarizing sunglasses, essentially what that is a piece of plastic with itty bitty tiny slits going in all in the same direction. And that's going to allow sort of this up and down component to come through your glasses, but it's going to block anything that's moving, sort of like the snake going horizontally across the table. So it's literally blocking out 50% of the radiation. So this would be the best choice if you're going to go buy some sunglasses, to get polarizing sunglasses, because it's going to block 50% of the radiation. So your eye isn't going to get as much radiation, therefore it won't get as damaged. The combined electrical wave travels through space at the speed of light. In fact, it is light. The model explains many of the properties of light, such as diffraction. Diffraction is when we have light spreading. So this is the spreading of the wave when it passes through a very small opening. However, this model does not explain all properties of light, so we have to use a second model to explain other portions of it. The second model is called a particle model, and it's going to be used to explain other properties of light that the wave cannot. In this model, you can envision light sources being sort of a stream of particles. A particle of light is called a photon. So you can think of like little marbles, tons of them. Each marble has like a little burst of light. Okay, so this is just a diagram. So each of these dots would represent a particle of light coming towards Earth in this example. Since both models are necessary to explain all light's properties, we say that the light has a wave-particle duality, dual meaning two, so it has both parts. The particle model best explains the reflection of light off of a mirror because those particles can hit the mirror and bounce off. The wave model best explains focusing of light by a lens. The brightness or intensity of a light can be described equally well by both models. In a particle model, the intensity depends on the number of photons. So if we have more photons, we're going to get more brighter light. In the wave model, intensity depends on the strength of the waves vibrating electrical and magnetic energies. We will generally be using the wave model, except when it's necessary to use our particle model. The human eye is sensitive to colors of light that are defined by the visible spectrum, for colors of the rainbow, Roy G. Biv. According to the wave theory, light's wavelength defines the color. So blue light has a specific wavelength, green light has a different wavelength. The wavelength is denoted by our Greek letter lambda, so it sort of looks like an upside down Y. And the wavelength of deep red light, on one end of the visible spectrum, is 7 times 10 to the negative 7th meters. This is really, really small, obviously, so we typically use a unit called nanometers. So wavelength, just a reminder, is the distance between the crest and the crest. You could even measure the distance between trough to trough. Violet light, which is on the other end of the spectrum, has a wavelength of about 4 times 10 to the 7th meters. So obviously that's a lot smaller than the red. So blue has the small wavelengths, red has larger wavelengths. A more convenient unit of expression, like I said, is we use what's called a nanometer. So 1 nanometer equals 10 to the negative 9th meters. So we'll be using this scale in class. So red, we have about 700 nanometers. Blue on the other side is about 400 nanometers. Frequency is the number of wave crests that pass a given point in 1 second's time. Frequency can be expressed in hertz and is usually denoted by the Greek letter nu, which looks like a V. Wavelength and frequency are related. In one vibration, a wave travels an distance equal to 1 wavelength. The product of the wavelength and frequency equals the speed of light. So the speed of light equals the wavelength times the frequency. Light from the sun or a light bulb has no color. We say it's white, but really that white light is a mixture of all the colors, all the colors put together. We can see this by our white light coming from the sun through our atmosphere and hitting droplets of water in the atmosphere, and that's going to spread the light out and we get a rainbow. We can also do this with the prism. So again, white light's coming in. Once it strikes the prism is going to slow down the waves because that light's entering a new medium with a higher density, and the colors are going to spread out according to their wavelength. They're going to bend differently because of their wavelength. When light passes into a prism, the direction of light beam is refracted or bent. The red light is refracted the least and the violet light is refracted the most. So that means the violet and the blues get bent the most and red the least. This is because the beam of white light is dispersed into all of its components of colors and we get a rainbow. The shortest wavelength, if we go back to our electromagnetic spectrum, not just the visible, but the whole spectrum, the shortest wavelength is our gamma rays, and our longest wavelength is going to be our radio waves. Okay, here's your electromagnetic spectrum. Again, we talked about the colors of the rainbow, Roy G. Biv, but if we put this into the grand scheme of things, it's actually a very small portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. Long wavelength, radio waves, you can see the wavelengths down here. We're talking about 10 to the 8th meters for one wavelength, from one crest to one crest. If we go to the other end, this is your gamma rays, 10 to the negative 16th meters, very small. Now, there are specialized satellites designed to study radiation emitting from these parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. So we have some satellites specifically designed to look at X-rays, some satellites that are specifically designed to look at radio waves, and so on and so forth. So we can learn different stuff from the cosmos by studying these different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. Which before we had satellites and detectors, we weren't able to see this part of our universe, and we weren't able to study this part of the universe in a different way. So electromagnetic energy carries energy. The amount of energy carried by light depends on the wavelength of light. In general, the shorter the wavelength, the more energy it carries. And by light, in quotations, this is meant the electromagnetic radiation, not just the visible portion that we can see. You can think of it as this way. Gamma rays, you can think of they all have about the same amount of energy per wavelength, but if gamma rays are really scrunched together, that's going to really scrunch all the energy close together, and so it's going to have a high impact. This is why your gamma rays are not very safe. X-rays aren't very safe. So if you go to the dentist, you'll notice you don't get an X-ray every time you go to the dentist. They like to spread it out and keep track of how many X-rays you get because they don't want to expose your body to too many X-rays. They also do things to help keep you a little safer. They don't want to overexpose you with X-rays, so they'll often put that lead blanket on you, so you're only exposing certain parts of the body to X-rays and protecting other parts. You can also notice the X-ray technicians or radiologists, when they're taking the X-ray pictures, they actually leave the room so that they're not getting exposed to those X-rays all the time. But if you go to the other end of the spectrum, let's say radio waves, you can listen to the radio for your whole life, every day, every night, your whole life, and you're not going to get any damage from that because those wavelengths have very low energy. Gamma radiation carries the greatest amount of energy per photon, and in the visible spectrum, a photon of blue light is going to carry more energy than a photon of red light. So especially now in this digital world right now, we're spending a lot more time looking at our screens. So computer screens or computer glasses have become a bit more popular. So the glasses will essentially block out the violet and the blue light, which have higher energy, and let the other colors through. So your eyes getting hit with less energy. And during the last pandemic, I was on the computer all the time and recording lectures or doing emails, whatever, but I was sitting and staring at the computer screen all the time, and I noticed my head would continue to hurt. And so I ordered these glasses, and now I've noticed they've made a tremendous improvement in keeping my eyes safe and keeping my headaches down to a minimum. So a simple equation called Planck's equation expresses the relationship between energy and the frequency or wavelength of a radiation. So here we have two versions. Remember, E is your energy, C is your constant or your speed of light, and your upside down Y there is your wavelength. Okay, I just mentioned what all that is there. Since your wavelength appears in the denominator, which is the bottom part of your equation, as your wavelength gets smaller, the value of the fraction is going to get larger, and the value of that fraction is your energy. So the shorter the wavelength, the greater the energy. Okay, moving on to Wayne's law. Heated bodies radiate over a range of wavelengths. You are a heated body, so you actually emit wavelengths. That's why when we put on our infrared goggles, or like firefighters tend to use infrared goggles, they can see people, they can see body heat. That's because we're emitting a form of radiation called infrared radiation. There's usually a wavelength at which radiation is most intense. This wavelength affects the color of light emitted by a glowing body. Wayne's law expresses the relationship between the temperature of a heated body and the wavelength of radiation that it emits. So take this for example. This blue star emits mostly blue. It can emit other colors, as you see here, but Majority of it is going to be blue. This yellow star is going to emit primarily yellow wavelengths, and this red star is going to emit primarily red wavelengths. But again, it can emit all wavelengths, but the majority of it's going to be red. So imagine heating a rod of iron in a gas flame. After a short time, the rod's going to first start to glow like a dull red, then it's going to glow brighter red, and then it's going to turn to yellow. If we can continue to heat that rod up, it'll eventually go white and finally blue. And we're going to see the same thing in stars. Red stars tend to be on the cooler side, white and blue stars are going to be on the hotter side. Okay, so here's your Wien's law equation. T is your temperature in Kelvin. This is your wavelength, your maximum wavelength, so what's being produced the most. So to determine the temperature of a star, an astronomer examines the spectrum to determine which wavelength has the maximum brightness, so the maximum wavelength. And then your value is we have a constant value, 3 times 10 to the 6 is constant, and T, this is important, is always needs to be in kelvins. Wien's law is completely true for only a class of objects called black bodies. And a black body is an object that absorbs all of the radiant energy falling into it, so it looks black when it's cold. Black bodies are also excellent emitters of light. Very few objects are perfect black bodies, however, but Wien's law works quite well for objects like stars and planets. Generally, gases are not black bodies and they do not obey Wien's law. Interstellar gas clouds, for example, can radiate strongly in only narrow wavelength ranges. The color of gas clouds depends on the composition rather than the temperature. Whereas we're just looking at the stars, star color is primarily determined by their temperature, not their composition. And that is it for this lecture. See you guys later.